Nicholas Vaughan thought inviting his ex-wife to his wedding would be the ultimate revenge, until she walked in and stole the spotlight, captivating everyone, including him. As old emotions resurface and his perfect life unravels, Nicholas faces a choice: power and prestige, or the woman he never stopped loving. Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. Nicholas Vaughan stood at the window of his penthouse office, looking down at the city that had helped make him a billionaire. At 45, he had everything a man could want: a successful real estate empire, respect, power, and now the perfect fiancée to complete his image. "Mr. Vaughan, the wedding planner is online too," his assistant called over the intercom. Nicholas pressed the button on his desk phone. "Tell Marianne I'll call her back in an hour. I'm finalizing the guest list." He sat down at his mahogany desk and opened the leather-bound folder containing the names of everyone who would witness his wedding to Vivian Reynolds, the daughter of one of the most prominent banking families on the East Coast. Their union would not only be the social event of the year, but would also merge two powerful families. It was the perfect match, at least on paper. As Nicholas scrolled through the list, he paused, his finger hovering over a name that wasn't there. Ava Carter, his ex-wife. The woman who had walked out on him 7 years ago when he was just beginning to build his empire. The woman who had said he'd changed too much, that money had become more important than their marriage. A sudden, dark idea took shape in his mind. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Jennifer, I need you to find contact information for Ava Carter," he said, feeling a twisted satisfaction at saying her name out loud after all these years. "Your ex-wife, sir?" Jennifer sounded surprised. In the 5 years she'd worked for him, he had never once mentioned Ava. "Yes, and when you find her, add her to the wedding guest list." There was a pause on the line. "Are you sure, Mr. Vaughan?" Nicholas smiled coldly. "Absolutely. It's time to show her exactly what she walked away from." After hanging up, Nicholas leaned back in his chair. He pictured Ava, plain, simple Ava, watching him marry Vivian. He imagined the look on her face when she saw everything she could have had if she'd stayed. The grand ballroom, the elite guests, the lifestyle that now defined him. It would be the perfect revenge for how she'd humiliated him by leaving. Across town, in a modest apartment above the bookstore she owned, Ava Carter was arranging a display of new releases when the bell above the door jingled. "We close in 15 minutes, she called out without looking up. "Even for old friends?" a familiar voice asked. Ava turned to see Rachel, her best friend since college, standing there with 2 coffee cups. "I thought you might need this. You've been working non-stop since that review came out." Ava smiled gratefully. Her small bookstore, Turning Pages, had recently been featured in a local magazine as one of the city's hidden gems, and business had picked up considerably. "You're a lifesaver," she said, taking the coffee. At 38, Ava had built a quiet but fulfilling life for herself. Her dark hair was touched with a few strands of gray that she didn't bother to hide and laugh. Lines had begun to form around her eyes. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a comfortable sweater, with no makeup except for a touch of lipstick. "Any interesting mail today?" Rachel asked, helping Ava straighten books on a nearby shelf. "Just bills and some catalogs." "Why?" Rachel shrugged. "No reason, just making conversation." But there was something in her friend's tone that made Ava suspicious. "Rachel, what's going on?" Before Rachel could answer, the door opened again. A courier entered, holding an envelope. "Delivery for Ava." "Carter," he announced. Ava signed for the envelope, puzzled. She rarely received couriered packages. As the messenger left, she examined the heavy cream-colored envelope with her name written in elegant calligraphy. "Open it," Rachel urged, her eyes wide with curiosity. Ava broke the gold seal and pulled out a thick invitation card. As she read, all the color drained from her face. It's from Nicholas," she whispered. "He's getting married and he's inviting me to the wedding." Rachel took the invitation from Ava's trembling hands. "Nicholas Vaughan and Vivian Reynolds request the pleasure of your company." She looked up at Ava, stunned. "Your ex-husband is inviting you to his wedding. After all this time, that's just cruel." Ava sank into a nearby chair, her mind racing back to the last time she'd seen Nicholas. They had fought, like so many times before, about his growing obsession with wealth and status. He had been changing, becoming someone she didn't recognize anymore. The final straw came when he missed her father's funeral because of a business meeting he refused to reschedule. "I can't believe he found me," Ava murmured. "You're not actually considering going, are you?" Rachel asked incredulously. Ava stared at the invitation, running her fingers over the embossed lettering. "He wants to show off. He wants to prove that he won, that he's better off without me." "Then don't give him the satisfaction." But something stirred in Ava, a long-buried spark of defiance. "No," she said slowly. "I think I will go." Rachel looked horrified. "Why would you put yourself through that?" Ava stood up, a new determination in her eyes. "Because he thinks I'm still the same insecure woman who left him. He thinks I'll cower, or cry, or make a scene." She shook her head. "I want him to see that I moved on too. Not to wealth or status, but to happiness and peace." "But Ava, I know what I'm doing, Rachel." She picked up the invitation again. "RSVP by next Friday. That gives me 3 weeks to prepare." Saw we met the Reynolds estate. Vivian was reviewing seating arrangements with her mother when Nicholas arrived for dinner. "Darling, you're late," Vivian remarked, rising to give him a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. At 32, Vivian was the epitome of class and sophistication, with perfectly styled blonde hair and impeccable taste in everything from fashion to wine. "Sorry, I had some last-minute adjustments to make to the guest list," Nicholas said, accepting a glass of scotch from the butler. Vivian's perfectly shaped eyebrow arched. "Her adjustments? I thought we finalized everything last week." "Just one addition," Nicholas replied casually. An old friend, Mrs. Reynolds, looked up from her tablet. "Not that dreadful Harrington man. Really, Nicholas, he's been involved in far too many scandals." "No, not him." Nicholas took a sip of his drink. "I invited my ex-wife." The crystal glass in Vivian's hand slipped and would have shattered on the floor if the butler hadn't caught it with remarkable reflexes. "You did what?" Vivian's voice was dangerously quiet. "I invited Ava," Nicholas said, enjoying the reaction more than he'd expected. "I thought it would be appropriate." "Appropriate?" Vivian repeated incredulously. "How is inviting your ex-wife to our wedding appropriate?" Nicholas moved to the window, his back to his fiancée. "We ended on bad terms. This is a chance to show there are no hard feelings." "That's very noble of you, dear," Mrs. Reynolds said with obvious skepticism, "but quite unusual." Vivian dismissed her mother with a look. When they were alone, she approached Nicholas and placed a hand on his arm, forcing him to face her. "What are you really up to, Nicholas?" Her blue eyes were sharp, calculating. It was one of the things he admired about her. Vivian was never fooled by pretense. Nicholas smiled. "Is it so hard to believe I'm being magnanimous?" "Yes," she replied bluntly. "I know you too well. This is about your ego, isn't it? You want to show her what she missed out on." Nicholas didn't deny it. "She left me, Vivian, when I was nobody. When I was just starting to build everything I have now." Vivian studied him for a moment, then surprisingly, a slow smile spread across her face. "Well, I suppose I can understand that. After all, it will be satisfying to see her face when she realizes what she gave up." She straightened his tie with perfectly manicured fingers. "Just make sure she doesn't cause a scene. I won't have my wedding day ruined by drama." "Trust me," Nicholas said. "Ava doesn't have it in her to cause a scene. She'll probably wear something off the rack and hide in a corner all night." Vivian seemed satisfied with this assessment. "As long as you remember who you're marrying now." Over. The next 3 weeks, Ava surprised herself with her determination. She had called in every favor, spent more money than she should have, and even closed the bookstore for 2 days to travel to a neighboring city for a dress. The night of the wedding rehearsal dinner arrived, and Ava stood in front of her mirror, hardly recognizing herself. The woman who looked back at her wasn't the bookstore owner in comfortable jeans and practical shoes. This woman wore a simple but elegant emerald green dress that complemented her olive skin and dark hair, which had been styled in soft waves. The saleswoman had insisted on the dress, saying it brought out the green in her hazel eyes. Rachel sat on Ava's bed, watching with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You look amazing. But I still think this is a mistake. Maybe, Ava admitted, applying a final touch of lipstick, but I need to do this. Not just for him to see me, but for me to see him, to really close that chapter of my life. The taxi ride to the luxurious hotel where the rehearsal dinner was being held gave Ava time to reconsider her decision. But every time doubt crept in, she remembered the dismissive way Nicholas had treated her toward the end of their marriage, how he had made her feel small and insignificant. I deserve to be here as much as anyone, she whispered to herself as the taxi pulled up to the entrance. The grand ballroom was already filled with elegantly dressed guests when Ava arrived. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the room, and classical music played softly in the background. Ava took a deep breath and handed her invitation to the attendant at the door. Ava Carter, the young man read, then looked up with a smile. Welcome, Miss Carter. The bar is to your left and dinner will be served at 8. Ava stepped into the room, immediately feeling dozens of curious eyes turn in her direction. She recognized a few faces from her past, friends of Nicholas who had slowly disappeared from her life after the divorce. She kept her head high and made her way toward the bar. White wine, please, she requested, trying to keep her voice steady. Make. That too, a deep voice said beside her. One for the lady and one for me. Ava turned to find herself face to face with an older gentleman with kind eyes and silver hair. It took her a moment to recognize Henry Booth, Nicholas's former mentor, and one of the few people who had been genuinely kind to her during her marriage. Henry, she said warmly. It's been a long time, Henry smiled, handing her a glass of wine. Too long, my dear. I must say you're the last person I expected to see here tonight. Ava took a sip of her wine. That makes 2 of us. I assume Nicholas extended the invitation. She nodded. He did. Henry's eyes twinkled knowingly. And you came to show him. You've moved on? Something like that, Ava admitted. Well, Henry said, raising his glass in a small toast, you're certainly making an impression. You look radiant, Ava. As they chatted, Ava became aware of a stir near the entrance. Nicholas had arrived with his fiancée on his arm. Ava had seen pictures of Vivian Reynolds in the society pages. Blonde, beautiful, and born into wealth. In person, she was even more striking, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than Ava's entire wardrobe. But it was Nicholas who captured Ava's attention. 7 years had added a touch of grey at his temples, but otherwise he looked much the same. Tall, imposing, and handsome in a way that had always made her heart beat faster. She watched as he laughed at something Vivian said, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back, and then, as if sensing her gaze, Nicholas looked up. His eyes scanned the room until they landed on Ava. For a moment, he seemed frozen, in place, his expression unreadable. Then his eyebrows rose slightly in what might have been surprise. Ava raised her glass in a small, confident gesture of acknowledgement. To her satisfaction, it was Nicholas who looked away first. Round 1 to you, my dear, Henry murmured beside her. The evening progressed and Ava found herself surrounded by people who seemed genuinely interested in her bookstore. Henry had introduced her to several of his friends, and to her surprise, they treated her with respect, asking thoughtful questions about her business and her life. I've always believed independent bookstores are the heartbeat of literary culture, an elegant older woman named Margaret was saying. You must give me your card. My book club would love to visit. Ava was in the middle of thanking her when a shadow fell across their small group. She looked up to see Nicholas standing there, his expression carefully controlled. Ava, he said, his voice deeper than she remembered. I'm glad you could make it. The group around them quieted, watching the interaction with ill-concealed interest. Ava smiled politely. Thank you for the invitation, Nicholas. It was unexpected. Yes, well, I thought it was time to put the past behind us. His eyes roamed over her face, down to her dress, then back up again. There was a flicker of something in his gaze, surprise, perhaps, or reluctant admiration. That's very mature. Of you, she replied, keeping her voice light. Congratulations on your engagement. Vivian seems lovely. Nicholas nodded, seeming slightly off balance by her composure. She is. I should introduce you. Before Ava could protest, Nicholas had signaled to Vivian, who excused herself from her conversation and glided over to join them. "Vivian, this is Ava Carter," Nicholas said, his tone giving nothing away. "Ava, my fiancée, Vivian Reynolds." Vivian's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Ava, how interesting to meet you. Nicholas has told me so little about you." The subtle dig wasn't lost on Ava, but she refused to take the bait. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Vivian. Your rehearsal dinner is beautiful. Tomorrow's wedding must be even more spectacular." "It will be," Vivian assured her, looping her arm through Nicholas's possessively. "The event of the season, everyone says." "I'm sure it will be perfect," Ava said sincerely. A brief look of confusion crossed Vivian's face, as if she had expected a different reaction. Before she could respond, the dinner bell sounded. "If you'll excuse me," Ava said, "I should find my seat." As she turned away, she felt Nicholas's eyes following her. She had survived the first encounter, and to her surprise, it hadn't been as painful as she'd feared. In fact, she felt strangely empowered. Dinner was served at elegantly set tables, and Ava found herself seated with Henry, Margaret, and several other guests, who seemed to be more interested in genuine conversation than in gossip. From her seat, she had a clear view of the head table, where Nicholas sat beside Vivian, surrounded by family members and the wedding party. Throughout the meal, Ava caught Nicholas glancing in her direction multiple times. Once, their eyes met, directly across the room, and for a brief moment, she saw a flash of the man she had once loved, before ambition and wealth had changed him. As dessert was being served, the best man stood to offer a toast. Ava listened as he spoke of Nicholas's determination, his vision, his rise to success. But there was no mention of the Nicholas she had known, the man who had once talked about building homes for families, not just investments for profit. The man who had brought her wildflowers just because they reminded him of her smile. The evening was drawing to a close when Ava decided it was time to leave. She had accomplished what she came to do. She had faced Nicholas with dignity and shown him that she had built a good life without him. As she was saying her goodbyes to Henry and Margaret, making promises to stay in touch, a server approached with a note. "Would you meet me on the terrace? 5 minutes. N." Ava stared at the familiar handwriting, her heart suddenly racing. After a moment's hesitation, she excused herself and made her way through the French doors that led to the terrace. The night air was cool, and stars twinkled above in a clear sky. She wrapped her arms around herself, wishing she had brought a shawl. "You always did forget to bring a jacket," Nicholas's voice came from the shadows. He stepped forward, removing his suit jacket and offering it to her. Ava shook her head. "I'm fine, thank you." Nicholas nodded, draping the jacket over his arm instead. For a moment they stood in silence, looking out at the city lights below. "Why did you come, Ava?" he finally asked, his voice softer than it had been inside. "Why did you invite me?" she countered. A rueful smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Taoiseach." Another silence fell between them, filled with unspoken words and memories. "You've changed," Nicholas said at last. "So have you," Ava replied. He turned to face her fully now. "I meant, you look beautiful tonight. Not that you weren't. Always." He trailed off, seemingly frustrated with his inability to express himself clearly. "Thank you," Ava said simply. She paused, then added, "You seem happy, Nicholas. I'm glad." Something flickered in his eyes, doubt, perhaps, or regret. But it was gone as quickly as it had appeared. "Your bookstore," he said, changing the subject. "Henry tells me it's doing well." Ava smiled genuinely for the first time. "It is. It's not an empire like yours, but it's mine, and I love it." Nicholas nodded thoughtfully. "You always did love books more than anyone I've ever known." The comment took her back to their early days, when he would tease her about staying up too late reading, only to join her in bed with a book of his own. "My should go," Ava said, suddenly needing to escape the weight of those memories. "It's late and you have a big day tomorrow." Nicholas stepped closer, his expression serious. "Why did you really come tonight, Ava?" Ava took a deep breath. "I came Because I needed to see for myself that our story was really over, that we had both moved on. She met his gaze steadily. And we have, haven't we? Before Nicholas could answer, the terrace doors opened, and Vivian's voice called out, "Nicholas, are you out here? Mother is looking for you." Vivian stepped onto the terrace, her eyes narrowing when she saw them standing together. "Am I interrupting something?" "Not at all," Ava said quickly. "I was just leaving." She turned to Nicholas. "Goodbye, Nicholas. I wish you both every happiness." With those words, she walked past Vivian and back into the ballroom, her head held high. She didn't look back to see the confusion on Nicholas's face or the suspicion on Vivian's. She didn't need to. As Ava stepped into the taxi that would take her home, she felt a strange mixture of sadness and liberation. She had faced her past and found herself stronger than she expected. Tomorrow Nicholas would marry Vivian, and their brief encounter on the terrace would become just another memory, or so she thought. What Ava didn't know was that as she was leaving the hotel, Nicholas stood at the window of the ballroom watching her go, a troubled expression on his face. And beside him Vivian was watching too, not Ava, but Nicholas's reaction to her departure. The game that Nicholas had started by sending that invitation was far from over. In fact, it had only just begun. The morning of Nicholas and Vivian's wedding arrived with perfect blue skies and gentle sunshine, the kind of day wedding planners dream about. But inside the Reynolds estate, the atmosphere was anything but serene. "Where is he?" Mrs. Reynolds demanded, pacing the marble floor of the grand entrance hall. "The photographer has been waiting for 20 minutes. Vivian, already dressed in her designer robe for hair and makeup, checked her diamond watch with growing irritation. "Jennifer," she called to Nicholas's assistant, "have you heard from him?" Jennifer looked uncomfortable. "He left his penthouse early this morning, Ms. Reynolds. He said he needed to clear his head before the ceremony." Vivian's eyes narrowed. "And you didn't think to mention this earlier?" He said it wasn't unusual for grooms to need some time alone before their wedding day." Mrs. Reynolds scoffed. "Well, he needs to clear his head on schedule. We have a timeline to follow." As the women argued, Nicholas was indeed clearing his head by driving aimlessly through the city streets. His hands gripped the steering wheel of his Bentley as memories from the previous night kept replaying in his mind. Ava had surprised him. He had expected her to look the same as she had 7 years ago, plain, simple, forgettable. He had expected her to be intimidated by the wealth and glamour surrounding him now. Most of all, he had expected to feel nothing but smug satisfaction when she saw everything she had walked away from. Instead, she had walked into that ballroom looking more beautiful than he remembered, with a quiet confidence that had drawn people to her. And when they had spoken on the terrace, there had been no bitterness in her eyes, only a gentle acceptance that had somehow left him feeling empty rather than victorious. Nicholas found himself turning down a familiar street, one he hadn't visited in years. Before he could reconsider, he had parked across from a small storefront with a wooden sign that read, "Turning Pages, Ava's Bookstore." He sat in his car, watching as a few early customers entered and left the shop. Was she in there now? What would she say if he walked in? The thought made his heart race in a way it hadn't done in years. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. Vivian's name flashed on the screen. "Nicholas, where are you?" she demanded, without preamble. "The photographer is waiting and we're already behind schedule. I'll be there in 20 minutes, he replied, starting the car. "I just needed some fresh air." "Well, breathe faster," Vivian snapped before hanging up. Nicholas took one last look at the bookstore, then pulled away, unaware that Ava had been standing at the window, watching him with a mixture of confusion and concern. Ava had opened her store earlier than usual that morning, needing the comfort of her books to distract her from thoughts of Nicholas and the wedding that would take place later that day. She had just finished arranging a new display when she looked up and saw his distinctive car parked across the street. Her heart skipped a beat as she recognized Nicholas sitting behind the wheel, staring at her store. She stood perfectly still, half hidden by the display, wondering if he would come in, but after a few minutes his phone rang and then he drove away. Was that who I think it was? Rachel asked, coming out from the back room with a stack of new releases. Ava nodded, unable to hide her confusion. What was he doing here? Today of all days? Rachel placed the books on the counter. Maybe your appearance last night had more of an effect than you thought. Don't, Ava warned. Don't even suggest it. He's getting married in a few hours. To a woman who looks like she's never cracked a book that wasn't about fashion or etiquette, Rachel muttered. That's not fair. You don't know her. Rachel raised an eyebrow. Defending the woman who's marrying your ex? That's very mature of you. Ava sighed. It's not about defending her, it's about moving on, really moving on, not just pretending to. The bell above the door jingled, and they both turned to see Henry Booth enter, dressed in a formal morning suit. Henry, Ava greeted him with surprise. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be at the wedding? Henry smiled warmly. I have time, the ceremony isn't until 2. He looked around the store with genuine interest. So this is your sanctuary. It suits you, Ava. Thank you, she said, touched by his visit. Would you like some coffee? I have a small pot brewing in the back. That would be lovely. As Rachel excused herself to help a customer, Ava led Henry to the cozy reading nook at the rear of the store, where a few comfortable chairs surrounded a small coffee table. I wanted to check on you, Henry admitted as Ava poured him a cup. Last night couldn't have been easy. Ava handed him the coffee. It was complicated, but I'm glad I went. Nicholas seemed affected by your presence, Henry observed carefully. Ava looked away. That wasn't my intention, wasn't it? Henry's tone was gentle but knowing. No, Ava insisted. I just needed to face him, to prove to myself that I've moved on. Henry took a sip of his coffee. And have you moved on? Ava hesitated. I thought I had. Until you saw him again, Henry finished for her. She nodded reluctantly. But it doesn't matter now. He's marrying Vivian today, and that's that. Henry studied her for a moment. You know, I've known Nicholas for a long time. I watched him build his empire, gain wealth and power, but I've never seen him truly happy. Not since you left. He made his choices, Ava said quietly. So did I? Indeed. Henry set down his cup. Well, I should be going. I just wanted to make sure you were all right. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. And to give you this. Ava took the envelope with confusion. What is it? My new address and phone number. I'm retiring next month, moving to a smaller place downtown. I'd like to stay in touch, if that's all right with you. Ava was touched by the gesture. I'd like that very much, Henry. As she walked him to the door, Henry paused. You know, Nicholas drove by here this morning. Ava's heart jumped. I saw him. Henry nodded thoughtfully. Be gentle with yourself today, Ava. Endings are never easy, even when we think we're prepared. For them. After Henry left, Ava found herself unable to focus on work. Her mind kept returning to the image of Nicholas sitting in his car outside her store on his wedding day. You should close early, Rachel suggested, noticing her distraction. Come over to my place, we'll watch bad movies and eat too much ice cream. Ava managed a smile. That sounds perfect. Let me just finish up a few things here. At the Reynolds estate, controlled chaos reigned as the wedding hour approached. Florists made last-minute adjustments to elaborate arrangements, caterers prepared a feast for 400 guests, and in a spacious upstairs suite, Vivian sat before a mirror while a team of stylists perfected her appearance. Has anyone seen Nicholas? She asked, her voice tight with irritation. He was supposed to be back an hour ago for the photos. Her maid of honor, Sophia, exchanged glances with the makeup artist. He's here, Vivian. He arrived about 20 minutes. Hello? He's getting ready in the East Wing. Vivian relaxed slightly. Good. Tell him I expect him to be on time for the photographer. We've already had to reschedule once. As Sophia left to deliver the message, Mrs. Reynolds entered the room, surveying her daughter with critical eyes. The veil needs to be adjusted, she declared. And the flowers have arrived. They're acceptable, but not as spectacular as I'd hoped. Vivian barely listened as her mother continued to nitpick every detail. Her mind was on Nicholas and his strange behavior since the rehearsal dinner. He had been distant during their brief conversation last night and then disappearing this morning. It wasn't like him to be so unpredictable. "Mother," she interrupted, "did you speak with Nicholas when he arrived?" Mrs. Reynolds frowned, briefly. He seemed distracted. "Distracted?" Vivian repeated sharply. "What do you mean?" "I don't know, dear. Preoccupied. It's probably just wedding nerves." But Vivian wasn't convinced. Wedding nerves didn't explain why Nicholas had been so fixated on his ex-wife last night, or why he had disappeared this morning without telling anyone where he was going. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. One of the wedding coordinators peeked in, clipboard in hand. "Ms. Reynolds, the photographer is ready for you now, and your father is waiting to escort you downstairs." Vivian nodded, rising from her seat with practiced grace. As she moved toward the door, her mother caught her arm. "Vivian," Mrs. Reynolds said quietly, "remember that no matter what happens today, you're a Reynolds. We always maintain our dignity." Something in her mother's tone made Vivian pause. "What are you saying?" "Nothing, dear," Mrs. Reynolds replied, smoothing a non-existent wrinkle from her daughter's veil. "I just want you to be prepared for anything." Inasinducha Nicholas stood at the window of his dressing room, adjusting his cufflinks as he looked out at the growing crowd of guests in the garden below. His best man, Richard, lounged in a chair nearby, nursing a glass of whiskey. "You're unusually quiet today," Richard observed. Having second thoughts, Nicholas shot him a warning look. "Don't start." Richard raised his hands in surrender. "Just asking. You've been off since last night." He hesitated, then added, "It was her, wasn't it? Seeing your ex-wife again." Nicholas turned back to the window. "Ava has nothing to do with this." "Right," Richard said skeptically. "That's why you couldn't take your eyes off her all evening." Before Nicholas could respond, there was a knock at the door. Jennifer entered, looking anxious. "Mr. Vaughan, the photographer is waiting. Ms. Reynolds is already downstairs." Nicholas nodded. "Tell them I'll be right there." As Jennifer left, Richard stood and clapped Nicholas on the shoulder. "For what it's worth, I think Vivian is perfect for you. She understands this world, your ambitions. Ava never did." Nicholas didn't reply. Richard was right, of course. Vivian was the logical choice. Beautiful, well-connected, ambitious like him. She would never ask him to choose between his work and his personal life, because for Vivian, they were one and the same. So why couldn't he stop thinking about the look in Ava's eyes last night when she'd wished him happiness? Why had he driven to her bookstore this morning? And why, on what should be the happiest day of his life, did he feel so empty? "Let's go," he said abruptly, pushing these thoughts aside. "We have a wedding to attend." Back at Turning Pages, Ava was preparing to close early when the bell above the door rang once more. She looked up, expecting to see a last-minute customer, but instead found Sophia, Vivian's maid of honor, standing there looking uncomfortable. "Can I help you?" Ava asked, surprised. Sophia glanced around as if making sure they were alone. "I'm Sophia Harris. I'm a friend of Vivian's." "I remember you from last night," Ava said cautiously. "Is everything okay?" Sophia twisted her hands nervously. "No, not really. I probably shouldn't be here, but I thought you should know." She took a deep breath. "Nicholas has been acting strange all day. He disappeared this morning, and when he came back, he wouldn't say where he'd been." Ava's heart sank. "I saw him outside the store earlier. We didn't speak." Sophia's eyes widened. "So it's true he came to see you on his wedding day?" "No," Ava corrected her firmly. "He drove by. He didn't come in." "Still," Sophia insisted, "something's not right. Vivian's worried even though she won't admit it. And after seeing you last night, well, anyone could tell there's still something between you and Nicholas." Ava shook her head. "That's not true. We've been over for 7 years." "Then why did he invite you to the wedding? Why did he meet you on the terrace? Why did he drive by your store today?" "I don't know," Ava admitted. "But whatever his reasons, they're his problem, not mine." Sophia looked unconvinced. "Maybe. But I thought you should know that he's not. He doesn't seem happy." She moved toward the door, then turned back. "The wedding starts at 2. Just think about it." After Sophia left, Ava sat down heavily, on a nearby stool. Why would Vivian's friend come here to tell her these things? Was it a trick, a test, or was she sincerely concerned? Ava checked the clock. It was just past noon. In 2 hours, Nicholas would be married. The thought sent an unexpected pang through her heart. She picked up her phone and called Rachel. "Can you come over?" she asked when her friend answered. Something strange just happened. 20 minutes later, Rachel sat across from Ava in the now-closed bookstore, listening with growing astonishment as Ava recounted Sophia's visit. "So let me get this straight," Rachel said when Ava finished. "The maid of honor at your ex-husband's wedding came here to tell you he's unhappy and might still have feelings for you. Hours before the ceremony?" Ava nodded miserably. "I don't know what to do, Rachel. Part of me thinks it's some kind of cruel game. But what if it's not? What if Nicholas is making a mistake?" "And what if he is?" Rachel challenged. "That's his problem, not yours. He broke your heart once, Ava. Don't give him the chance to do it again." Ava stood and began pacing the small space between bookshelves. "I know you're right. I know the smart thing, the safe thing, is to stay away. But what? But what? If I'm making the same mistake again, what if I'm walking away when I should stay and fight?" Rachel looked concerned. "Fight for what, Ava? For a man who invited you to his wedding to humiliate you, who's marrying someone else in less than 2 hours. Put that way, it did sound ridiculous." Ava sighed and sank back onto her stool. "You're right. I'm being crazy." Rachel's expression softened. "Not crazy, just still in love with him, maybe." The question hung in the air between them. Ava had spent 7 years convincing herself that she had moved on, that her feelings for Nicholas were safely in the past. But seeing him again had brought everything rushing back, the good and the bad. "I don't know," she finally admitted. "I don't know what I feel anymore." At the Reynolds estate, guests were beginning to arrive for the ceremony. Under a canopy of white roses in the expansive garden, rows of gold chiavery chairs faced an elaborate floral arch where Nicholas and Vivian would exchange their vows. Inside, Nicholas stood with Richard in a small antechamber, listening to the string quartet playing as guests were seated. He felt strangely detached from it all, as if he were watching someone else's wedding unfold. 10 minutes, the wedding coordinator announced, popping her head in. "Are you ready, Mr. Vaughan?" Nicholas nodded automatically. The coordinator disappeared, and Richard offered him a flask. "One for courage?" Nicholas waved it away. "I need a clear head." Richard studied him closely. "You don't look like a happy groom, Nick." "I'm fine," Nicholas insisted, though even to his own ears the words sounded hollow. Richard sighed. "Look, I've been your friend for 20 years. I've seen you at your best and your worst. And right now, you look like a man about to make a huge mistake." Nicholas turned on him angrily. "What are you talking about? Vivian is perfect. She's beautiful, intelligent, connected. Our marriage makes sense on every level." "Every level, except the one that matters," Richard replied quietly. "You're not in love with her." The words hit Nicholas like a physical blow. He opened his mouth to deny it, but found he couldn't form the words. "It's not too late," Richard said, checking his watch. "You have about 7 minutes to figure out what you really want." Before Nicholas could respond, there was another knock at the door. This time it was Henry Booth who entered, looking grave. "Henry?" Nicholas greeted him with surprise. "Is something wrong?" Henry closed the door behind him. "That depends on your perspective. I've just come from speaking with Vivian." Nicholas felt a flicker of alarm. "What about?" "About you," Henry said simply. "And Ava." Richard glanced between them. "I think this is my cue to step out." He slipped through the door, leaving Nicholas alone with his mentor. "What did you say to Vivian?" Nicholas demanded once they were alone. Henry's expression remained calm. "The truth, that I've known you for a very long time, and I've never seen you look at Vivian the way you looked at Ava last night." Nicholas ran a hand through his hair in frustration. "That's ridiculous. Ava and I have been over for years." "Have you?" Henry challenged. "Then why did you invite her to your wedding? Why did you arrange to meet her alone on the terrace? Why did you drive by her bookstore this morning?" Nicholas stared at him. "How did you know about that?" I visited her store this morning. I was leaving as you drove up. For a moment, Nicholas was speechless. Then anger took over. You had no right to interfere, Henry. No right to talk to Vivian about my past. Perhaps not, Henry conceded. But someone needed to speak the truth before it was too late. He moved to the door, then paused. You know, Nicholas, I've watched you build an empire based on what you thought would make you happy, but I've never seen you as happy as you were. When you were with Ava, before the money, before all of this. He gestured to the elaborate wedding preparations outside. Just something to consider before you say, I do. With that, Henry left, closing the door softly behind him. Nicholas stood frozen in place, his mentor's words echoing in his mind. Was Henry right? Had he been chasing the wrong dream all these years? The wedding coordinator's voice came through the door. 5 minutes, Mr. Vaughan. Nicholas moved to the window, looking out at the gathered guests, business associates, society friends, people who knew his wealth and status, but not his heart. And somewhere out there, Vivian was waiting, ready to become his wife, but it was Ava's face that filled his thoughts. Ava, who had loved him when he had nothing. Ava, who had walked away because she couldn't bear to watch him change into someone she didn't recognize. Ava, who had returned his invitation with grace and dignity, wishing him happiness even when he had tried to hurt her. Nicholas reached for his phone, his fingers hovering over the screen. He had a choice to make, and very little time to make. Syntax at turning pages, Ava sat alone, having convinced Rachel to go home. She needed time to think, to sort through the tangle of emotions that had been unleashed by Nicholas's reappearance in her life. She picked up the invitation. That had started it all, running her fingers over the embossed lettering. In less than an hour, Nicholas would be married. The thought brought an ache to her chest that she couldn't ignore. Her phone buzzed with a text message. She picked it up, expecting to see Rachel's name on the screen. Instead, it was a number she didn't recognize. The ceremony starts in 30 minutes. He's not himself. I think he needs you. Sophia Ava stared at the message, her heart racing. Why was Vivian's friend so determined to involve her? What did she hope to gain? Before she could decide how to respond, her phone rang. This time, it was Henry Booth calling. Henry? She answered, confused. Aren't you at the wedding? I am, he confirmed, his voice low. Ava, I've just spoken with Nicholas, and with Vivian. Ava's grip on the phone tightened. What happened? I told Vivian what I believe to be true, that Nicholas has never stopped loving you. Henry, Ava gasped. How could you? It's their wedding day. Better to face the truth now than live a lie, Henry said firmly. Nicholas is struggling, Ava. He needs to make a choice, but I don't think he knows how. Ava closed her eyes, feeling overwhelmed. What are you asking me to do, Henry? There was a pause on the line. I'm not asking you to do anything, my dear. I'm simply telling you what I see. Two people who still care for each other, trapped by pride and past hurts. Another pause. The ceremony begins in 25 minutes. After Henry hung up, Ava sat motionless, her mind racing. Part of her wanted to rush to the Reynolds estate to see Nicholas one more time before he married Vivian, but another part, the part that remembered the pain of their divorce, warned her to stay away. She was still deliberating when her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text from an unknown number. It's Nicholas. We need to talk. Now. Ava's heart stopped. How had he gotten her number? And why was he texting her now, minutes before his wedding? Before she could decide whether to respond, her phone rang again. Nicholas's number. With trembling fingers, she answered. Nicholas? Ava. His voice sounded strained. Are you at the bookstore? Yes, she replied cautiously. Nicholas, what's going on? You're getting married in 20 minutes. There was a brief silence. Then, I'm outside. Can I come in? Ava's eyes flew to the front window. Sure enough, Nicholas's Bentley was parked across the street, and he was standing on the sidewalk, phone to his ear, looking directly at her store. The door's open, she said softly, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might break through her chest. She watched as Nicholas crossed the street and approached the door. Taking a deep breath, she stood to meet him, unsure of what this unexpected visit might mean for both their futures. The bell above the door jingled as Nicholas stepped into Turning Pages. He stood just inside the entrance, still dressed in his wedding tuxedo, his bow tie slightly askew. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the ticking of the old wall clock that Ava had found at a flea market when she first opened the store. "You're supposed to be getting married," Ava finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. Nicholas ran a hand through his hair, messing up its perfect styling. "I know." "Nicholas," Ava took a step forward. "What are you doing here? There are hundreds of people waiting for you right now." He moved deeper into the store, his eyes taking in the cozy space with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and comfortable reading nooks. It was nothing like the sleek, modern spaces he usually occupied, but there was something immediately welcoming about it, like Ava herself had always been. "I couldn't do it," he admitted. "I was standing there, minutes away from walking down that aisle, and all I could think about was you." Ava's heart skipped a beat, but she forced herself to remain calm. "You're just nervous. It's normal to have cold feet." Nicholas shook his head. "It's not cold feet, Ava, it's—" He paused, searching for the right words. "When I sent you that invitation, I wanted to hurt you. I wanted to show you what you gave up when you left me. But then you walked into that ballroom last night, and instead of feeling satisfied, I felt—" "What?" Ava asked when he didn't continue. "Regret," he said simply. "I've spent 7 years building an empire, becoming exactly the man I always thought I wanted to be. But seeing you again made me realize that I lost something more valuable along the way." Ava crossed her arms, protecting herself from the hope that was trying to take root in her heart. "And you realized this 20 minutes before your wedding. Nicholas, you're about to leave hundreds of guests waiting, including your fiancé. Do you understand what you're doing?" Before Nicholas could answer, the bookstore door opened again. They both turned to see Vivian standing there, still in her wedding dress, her face a mask of controlled fury. "So this is where you ran off to," she said, her voice icy calm. "I should have known." Nicholas stepped forward. "Vivian, I can explain." "Can you?" she challenged, moving into the store with remarkable grace despite her elaborate gown. "Because I'd love to hear how you explain leaving me at the altar to run to your ex-wife." "I didn't leave you at the altar," Nicholas corrected. "I left before the ceremony." "As if that makes it better," Vivian snapped. Her gaze shifted to Ava. "And you? I assume you're enjoying this?" Ava shook her head emphatically. "No, I'm not. Vivian, I had no idea he was coming here. I would never—" "Save it," Vivian cut her off. "I'm not interested in your excuses." She turned back to Nicholas. "Do you have any idea what you've done? The humiliation you've caused? My family, our guests, everyone is waiting." Nicholas looked genuinely remorseful. "I know, and I'm sorry, but it would have been worse to go through with it knowing my heart. I wasn't fully in it." Vivian laughed bitterly. "Your heart? Since when do you make decisions with your heart, Nicholas? You've built your entire life on calculated choices. Our marriage was supposed to be the perfect merger, your empire and my family's connections." "You deserve better than that," Nicholas said quietly. "We both do." For a moment, Vivian's composure cracked, revealing a flash of genuine hurt beneath her anger. "You could have realized this before today," she said, her voice slightly unsteady. "Before I was standing in a $50,000 dress with 300 people waiting to watch me become your wife." An uncomfortable silence fell over the three of them. Ava felt like an intruder in her own store, witnessing a private pain that she had never meant to cause. "I should leave you two to talk," she said, moving toward the back room. "No." Vivian's command stopped her. "Stay. You're as much a part of this as we are." She straightened her shoulders. "Besides, I think I already know everything I need to." She removed the enormous diamond engagement ring from her finger and placed it on a nearby table. "Goodbye, Nicholas. I hope she's worth it." With that, Vivian turned and walked out of the store, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a cloud of broken promises. Through the window, they saw her climb into a waiting car. Apparently, she had anticipated where Nicholas had gone. After she left, Ava rounded on Nicholas. "How could you do that to her, on her wedding day?" Nicholas sank into one of the reading chairs, suddenly looking exhausted. I know it was cruel, but isn't it more cruel to marry someone knowing you're still in love with someone else? The words hung in the air between them. Ava felt her carefully constructed walls beginning to crumble. Nicholas, she began carefully, you can't just walk back into my life and say things like that. Not after 7 years, not after everything that happened between us. I know, he acknowledged, and I'm not expecting you to just forgive me or fall back into my arms. But seeing you again, it made me realize how much I've missed you, how empty my life has been despite all the success. Ava moved to the chair opposite him, keeping a safe distance. You changed, Nicholas, that's why I left. You became so focused on money and status that you forgot about the things that really mattered. Like your father's funeral, Nicholas said quietly, showing that he remembered the breaking point in their marriage. Ava nodded, surprised that he would bring it up. Yes, like that. I was wrong, Nicholas admitted. I was young and ambitious and stupid. I thought if I could just build enough wealth, enough power, we'd both be happy. But I lost you in the process. Ava studied him, trying to see past the polished exterior to the man she had once loved with all her heart. And what about now? Have you really changed? Or are you just feeling nostalgic because I didn't show up last night looking miserable like you expected? Nicholas winced at her directness. I deserve that, but no, it's not nostalgia. Seeing you again, seeing how you've built this wonderful business, how you've made a life for yourself, it reminded me of the person I used to be. The person who wanted to build something meaningful, not just profitable. Before Ava could respond, her phone rang. It was Rachel. I should take this, she said, stepping away from Nicholas. She's probably worried about me. Go ahead, Nicholas nodded. Ava answered the call, moving toward the front window for privacy. Rachel, you're not going to believe what's happening. Oh, I think I might, Rachel replied. Turn on any news channel right now. Confused, Ava reached for the small TV she kept behind the counter for slow days. As the screen flickered to life, she gasped. There, on the local news channel, was live coverage outside the Reynolds estate. The headline at the bottom of the screen read, Billionaire Nicholas Vaughan leaves bride at the altar. Oh my God, Ava whispered, turning up the volume slightly. Sources say that Vaughan left just minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, the reporter was saying, standing in front of the estate gates where guests could be seen leaving in confusion. The Reynolds family has declined to comment, but an insider tells us that Vaughan may have reconciled with his ex-wife, Ava Carter. Ava quickly shut off the TV, her face pale. Rachel, I'll call you back. She turned to Nicholas, who had moved beside her and had also seen the news coverage. This is a nightmare. They're talking about us on live television. Nicholas looked troubled. I'm sorry, Ava. I never meant to drag you into a media circus. But that's exactly what's happening. Ava ran her hands through her hair in distress. Your life might be used to this kind of attention, but mine isn't. Just then, a flash went off outside the store window. They both turned to see a photographer aiming a long lens camera at them. Within seconds, more media people began to gather. On the sidewalk, they found us, Nicholas muttered. We need to get out of here. Ava moved quickly to lock the front door and flipped the closed sign. How? They're blocking the entrance, Nicholas thought for a moment. Is there a back door? Ava nodded, leading him through the store to a small alley exit. My car's parked. A block away. Mine too, unfortunately, Nicholas said, peering out the back door cautiously. But I don't think we should separate. They'll just follow both of us. So what do we do? Ava asked, feeling overwhelmed by the situation. Nicholas pulled out his phone. I have a place upstate. Very private. No one knows about it. I can have my driver pick us up a few blocks from here and take us there until this dies down. If you're willing, that is. Ava hesitated. The idea of going to a secluded location with Nicholas, the man who had just left his bride at the altar, the man who had broken her heart years ago, seemed both crazy and strangely tempting. Nicholas, I don't know. Just to talk, he assured. Her. To figure this out away from the cameras. I owe you that much after dragging you into this mess. Ava looked back toward the front of the store, where more reporters were gathering. She could see camera flashes and hear raised voices. If she stayed, her quiet life would be splashed across every tabloid by morning. Okay, she finally agreed. But just to talk. This doesn't mean—" "I know," Nicholas said gently. "No expectations." He made a quick call to his driver, then turned back to Ava. "He'll meet us 3 blocks east, behind the old theater. Can you grab anything you might need for a day or two, just in case?" Ava hurried to the small apartment above her store, throwing some essentials into an overnight bag. Her mind was racing with the absurdity of the situation. 24 hours ago, she had been preparing to face her ex-husband's wedding with dignity. Now she was sneaking out the back door with him, while reporters gathered outside her store. When she came back downstairs, Nicholas had changed out of his tuxedo jacket and bow tie, leaving him in just the white shirt and black pants. He had found a baseball cap that had been left behind by a customer and put it on to help disguise himself. "Ready?" he asked, holding out his hand. After a brief hesitation, Ava took it, and they slipped out the back door into the alley. Vivian sat in the back of her father's car, her wedding dress crumpled around her, her makeup streaked from the few tears she had allowed herself to shed. Beside her, her mother patted her hand mechanically. "It's for the best, dear," Mrs. Reynolds said for the 3rd time. "Better to know now than after the wedding." Vivian pulled her hand away. "Please stop saying that, Mother. It doesn't help." Mr. Reynolds sat across from them, his face a thundercloud of anger. "He'll pay for this," he growled. "I'll make sure every business associate knows exactly what kind of man Nicholas Vaughn really is." "Don't," Vivian said sharply. "That won't help either." Her parents exchanged surprised looks. They had expected hysteria, rage, a complete breakdown. Instead, their daughter sat in composed dignity, her mind already calculating her next move. "The press will be all over this," Vivian said, thinking aloud. "We need to control the narrative." Mrs. Reynolds nodded approvingly. "Of course, we'll issue a statement saying the wedding was postponed due to—" "No," Vivian interrupted. "No lies. Nicholas left me at the altar for his ex-wife. That's the truth, and that's what we'll say." She straightened her shoulders. "But we'll emphasize my grace in the face of such betrayal. The public loves a wronged woman who shows dignity and strength." Mr. Reynolds looked at his daughter with newfound respect. "You're taking this remarkably well." Vivian's smile was small, but determined. "What choice do I have? Besides, Nicholas did me a favor. He showed me his true colors before I was legally bound to him." She looked out the window at the passing city. "And I always land on my feet." I see Nicholas and Ava managed to make it to the meeting point without being spotted by reporters. As promised, a sleek black SUV with tinted windows was waiting for them. The driver, a discreet man named Marcus, who had worked for Nicholas for years, opened the door without comment about the unusual circumstances. Once they were safely inside and moving through traffic, Ava felt the tension begin to leave her body. She leaned her head back against the seat, suddenly exhausted by the emotional roller coaster of the past 24 hours. "Are you okay?" Nicholas asked softly. Ava opened her eyes to look at him. "I don't know. This is all happening so fast. Yesterday I was just a bookstore owner with a quiet life. Today I'm fleeing from paparazzi with a runaway groom." Nicholas winced. "When you put it that way, it sounds pretty bad." "Because it is," Ava replied. But there was no anger in her voice, just weariness. As they left the city behind, the landscape gradually changed from congested urban streets to tree-lined highways. Ava watched the scenery pass by, trying to make sense of the whirlwind her life had suddenly become. "Where exactly are we going?" she asked after they had been driving for about an hour. "I have a cabin on a small lake," Nicholas explained. "I bought it a few years ago when I needed a place to think, away from the city and the business. Only a few people know about it." Ava raised an eyebrow. "A cabin? I find it hard to believe you own anything that could be described as a cabin." Nicholas smiled slightly. "Well, it might be a bit more than a cabin, but it's private and peaceful. You'll see." Another hour passed in relative silence. The sun was beginning to set when Marcus turned onto a narrow road that wound through dense forest. Eventually, they came to a gate with a discreet security system. Nicholas entered a code, and they continued up a gravel driveway until the trees parted to reveal what Nicholas had modestly called a cabin. It was, in fact, a stunning modern lodge built of glass and natural wood, perched on the edge of a small lake. The evening light reflected off the water, casting a golden glow over the entire scene. "This is your idea of a cabin?" Ava asked, unable to hide her amazement. Nicholas had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "It's simpler than my other homes." Marcus carried their bags inside, then discreetly departed, promising to return whenever they called. As the sound of his car faded away, Ava and Nicholas were left truly alone for the first time. The interior of the lodge was surprisingly comfortable and unpretentious, with modern furniture in warm, natural tones, large windows overlooking the lake, and a stone fireplace that dominated one wall of the main living area. "Are you hungry?" Nicholas asked, breaking the awkward silence that had fallen between them. "There should be some basics in the kitchen." Ava nodded, suddenly realizing she hadn't eaten since morning. "I could eat something light." While Nicholas busied himself in the kitchen, Ava wandered around the living room, taking in the space. Unlike Nicholas's penthouse in the city, which she'd seen featured in architectural magazines, this place felt personal. The bookshelves were filled with actual books that looked read, not just displayed. There were comfortable throws on the couches, and a few framed photographs on the mantel. Curious, she moved closer to examine the photos. One showed Nicholas fishing with an older man she didn't recognize. Another was of a golden retriever sitting on the dock outside. And then, to her shock, she spotted a photo of herself and Nicholas from years ago, smiling, young, in love, standing in front of their first small apartment together. "I made some pasta," Nicholas called from the kitchen. "Nothing fancy, but—" He stopped when he saw her holding the photograph. "I kept that," he said quietly, "to remind me." "Of what?" Ava asked, her voice barely audible. "Of the last time I was truly happy." Ava carefully placed the photo back on the mantel. "Nicholas, what are we doing here? You just left your bride at the altar a few hours ago. It's madness." Nicholas approached her, stopping a respectful distance away. "I know. And I'm not expecting anything from you, Ava. I just couldn't go through with marrying Vivian, knowing I still had feelings for you." Ava shook her head in disbelief. "Feelings based on what? A chance meeting at your rehearsal dinner? You don't even know me anymore." "Then let me," Nicholas said simply. "Let me get to know the person you are now. And you can get to know me again too. No pressure, no expectations, just a chance to talk away from the cameras and the gossip." Ava studied him, trying to reconcile the powerful businessman who had invited her to his wedding to humiliate her with this more vulnerable man standing before her now. "Dinner's going to get cold," she finally said, neither accepting nor rejecting his proposal. They ate at the kitchen island, the conversation awkward and stilted at first, as they carefully avoided any mention of the day's events. Instead, Nicholas asked about her bookstore, and Ava found herself warming to the topic, explaining how she had built it from nothing into a community fixture. "That's impressive," Nicholas said with genuine admiration. "Building something that matters to people." "It's not an empire like yours," Ava said, echoing her words from the night before. "Maybe that's why it's better," Nicholas replied thoughtfully. "My empire serves investors and shareholders. Your bookstore serves actual people." He smiled ruefully. "When did you get so wise?" Ava shrugged. "Maybe I always was. You just stopped listening." The words could have been cutting, but there was no malice in her tone, just honesty. Nicholas nodded, acknowledging the truth of it. "I did," he admitted. "I got so caught up in chasing success that I forgot what real success looked like." He paused, then added, "That's why I keep that photo, to remind me of what I lost in the process." After dinner, they moved to the living room. Nicholas lit a fire in the fireplace, and they sat on opposite ends of the large couch, each holding a glass of wine. Outside, darkness had fallen completely, and the only light came from the fire and a few soft lamps. "Tell me something," Ava said after a comfortable silence had settled between them. "Why did you really invite me to your wedding? The truth this time." Nicholas stared into his wineglass for a long moment before answering. "I told myself it was to show you what you'd missed out on, to prove that I'd moved on and up in the world." He looked up at her. "But I think deep down, I just wanted to see you again. Even if it was under those circumstances." "That's surprisingly honest," Ava said. "I'm trying something new," Nicholas replied with a small smile. "Honesty, transparency. It's terrifying." Ava laughed softly, and the sound warmed him more than the fire. "I think it suits you." As the night wore on, they continued talking, gradually moving from safe topics to more personal ones. Nicholas spoke of his business successes, but also his regrets about the person he had become in pursuit of wealth. Ava shared stories of building her bookstore, her struggles and triumphs, and the peace she had found in her simpler life. "Do you remember our first apartment?" Nicholas asked as the fire began to die down. "That tiny one-bedroom walk-up with the leaky faucet and the neighbor who played saxophone at midnight." Ava smiled at the memory. "And the radiator that clanged so loudly it would wake us up. But we were happy there," Nicholas said softly. "Weren't we?" "Yes," Ava admitted. "We were." Nicholas leaned forward slightly. "What happened to us, Ava?" "Really?" Ava took a deep breath, knowing they had finally reached the heart of the matter. "You changed, Nicholas. The more successful you became, the more distant you grew. It wasn't just missing my father's funeral, though that was the breaking point. It was 100 little things before that. Cancelled dinners, forgotten anniversaries, phone calls that were more important than conversations. You were physically present, but emotionally you were already gone." Nicholas nodded slowly. "I thought I was building a better life for us, but I was just building walls between us." "And now?" Ava asked. "What are you building now?" He met her gaze directly. "I don't know yet, but I'd like to find out. With you, if you're willing." The vulnerability in his eyes took her breath away. This was a side of Nicholas she hadn't seen in years. The man beneath the wealth and power, the one she had fallen in love with so long ago. "It's been 7 years, she reminded him gently. "We can't just pick up where we left off." "I know," he agreed. "But maybe we can start something new, something better." He hesitated, then added, "That is, if you don't completely hate me for dragging you into my media circus." Ava found herself smiling despite everything. "I don't hate you. I'm not sure I ever could, even when I tried." A look of cautious hope crossed Nicholas's face. He started to reach for her hand, then stopped himself. "I meant what I said earlier. No pressure. We can take all the time you need." Ava appreciated his restraint. "Thank you for that, and for the sanctuary from the reporters." She stifled a yawn, the exhaustion of the day finally catching up with her. "You must be tired," Nicholas said, standing up. "Let me show you to your room." He led her upstairs to a comfortable guest room with its own bathroom and a balcony overlooking the lake. "There should be everything you need in here, but if you want anything else, just let me know." As he turned to leave, Ava called his name. "Nicholas." He paused at the doorway. "Yes?" "What would you have done if I hadn't been at the bookstore today? If you couldn't find me?" Nicholas considered the question seriously. "I still wouldn't have gone through with the wedding. That would have been unfair to Vivian and to myself, but finding you," he smiled softly, "that was the hope that gave me the courage to walk away." With that, he wished her good night and closed the door, leaving Ava alone with her thoughts and a heart that was beginning, against all reason, to hope again. The next morning, Ava woke to sunlight streaming through the large windows of her room. For a moment she was disoriented, forgetting where she was. Then the events of the previous day came rushing back. Nicholas at her bookstore, Vivian in her wedding dress, the reporters, the escape to this lakeside retreat. She got up and opened the balcony doors, stepping out into the crisp morning air. The view was breathtaking. The lake still and mirror-like in the early light, surrounded by trees, just beginning to show the first hints of fall color. In the distance, she could see a figure on the dock. Nicholas, wearing casual clothes she had never seen him in before, holding what looked like a fishing rod. The sight was so incongruous with the Nicholas she had known in recent years that she found herself smiling. She showered quickly and dressed in jeans and a light sweater she had packed, then made her way downstairs. The kitchen was empty but showed signs of recent use. A coffee pot was still warm, and 2 mugs sat ready on the counter. Ava poured herself a cup and ventured outside, walking along the path that led to the dock. Nicholas turned at the sound of her approach, setting the fishing rod aside. "Good morning," he greeted her with a smile. "Sleep well?" "Surprisingly, yes," Ava replied, joining him on the dock. "I didn't know you fished." I started a few years ago. It forces me to be patient, to be present in the moment. Good practice for a man who's spent his life rushing from one goal to the next. He gestured to the coffee in her hand. I was going to bring that to you when I came back in. Great minds, Ava said, taking a sip. They stood in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the still water of the lake. Have you checked the news? Ava finally asked, almost afraid to hear the answer. Nicholas nodded grimly. It's as bad as you might expect. Billionaire leaves socialite bride. For ex-wife is the general theme. Your name is mentioned in most of the stories, though they don't have many details yet. Ava grimaced. I should call Rachel, let her know I'm okay, and check on the store. Of course, Nicholas agreed. Use the landline in the study. Cell reception is spotty out here, which is usually a blessing. When they returned to the house, Ava made the call to Rachel, who was both relieved and exasperated. There are reporters camped outside your store and your apartment, Rachel informed her. Where are you? Are you okay? I'm fine, Ava assured her. I'm with Nicholas, at a place he has upstate. There was a stunned silence on the other end of the line. Ava Carter, you did not run away with a man who just left his bride at the altar. Tell me this is some kind of mistake. It's not what you think, Ava protested. We're just talking, figuring things out away from the media frenzy. Rachel's sigh was audible. You're still in love with him, aren't you? Ava glanced toward the kitchen, where Nicholas was preparing breakfast, his movements confident and relaxed in a way she hadn't seen in years. I don't know, she admitted quietly. Maybe I never stopped. Just be careful, Rachel warned. He broke your heart once, and he just did the same to another woman yesterday. After promising to stay in touch, Ava hung up and joined Nicholas in the kitchen. He looked up from the stove, where he was making omelets. Everything okay? As okay. As can be expected, Ava replied, leaning against the counter. Reporters are at my store and my apartment. Nicholas looked genuinely apologetic. I'm sorry, Ava, this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. What did you think would happen when you left Vivian at the altar? Ava asked, not unkindly. I wasn't thinking clearly, Nicholas admitted. All I knew was that I couldn't go through with the wedding. Not when seeing you again made me realize what I really wanted. The simple declaration hung in the air between them. Ava felt her heart racing, but forced herself to remain cautious. Nicholas, we can't just pick up where we left off. Too much has happened. You're still the man who invited me to his wedding to humiliate me, who left his fiancée on their wedding day. Who? I know, Nicholas interrupted. I know who I've been. The question is, will you give me a chance to show you who I want to be? Ava looked at him, really looked at him, and saw both the man she had loved and the man he had become. Could they find their way back to each other, or forward to something new? I don't know, she answered honestly, but I'm willing to find out. Slowly. The smile that spread across Nicholas's face was worth all the uncertainty. It was the smile of the young man she had fallen in love with, before wealth and status had changed him. Slowly, he agreed. We have all the time in the world. As they sat down to breakfast, looking out at the peaceful lake, Ava felt a sense of possibility that had been missing from her life for years. She didn't know what the future held for them, but for the first time in a long time, she was excited to find out. What neither of them realized was that back in the city, events were unfolding that would test their fragile new beginning. Because while Nicholas might have left Vivian at the altar, the Reynolds family was not known for accepting defeat gracefully. And Vivian Reynolds had plans of her own, plans that did not include letting Nicholas and Ava find their happy ending so easily. 3 days had passed since Nicholas and Ava had retreated to the lakeside lodge. 3 days of conversations that stretched late into the night, of rediscovering each other, of cautious steps towards something that felt both familiar and entirely new. Away from the pressures of the city and the media circus, they had found a rhythm together that reminded Ava of their early days, before money and ambition had changed everything. On the morning of the 4th day, Ava stood on the dock, watching the sun rise over the lake. The peaceful scene was a stark contrast to the chaos they had left behind, and she found herself wishing they could stay in this bubble forever. But reality was waiting, and they both knew it. "Penny for your thoughts," Nicholas said, joining her on the dock with 2 steaming mugs of coffee. Ava accepted one gratefully. "Just thinking that we can't hide out here forever." Nicholas nodded, his expression turning serious. "I know, I've been in touch with my lawyer and my PR team. The media frenzy is starting to die down, but..." He hesitated. "There are some complications." "What kind of complications?" Ava asked, her peace immediately disturbed. Nicholas sighed. "The Reynolds family isn't taking this lying down. James Reynolds, Vivian's father, is on the board of several companies I do business with. He's making noise about pulling his support." "Can he do that?" Ava asked, concerned despite herself. "He can try," Nicholas replied with a confidence that reminded her of the businessman he had become. "But my position is stronger than his. It's more noise than actual threat." He paused, then added more quietly, "But there's something else. Vivian gave an interview to the society pages." Ava's stomach tightened. "About us?" Nicholas nodded grimly. "She painted herself as the wronged woman, which to be fair she was, but she also implied that we had been having an affair for months, leading up to the wedding." "That's ridiculous," Ava exclaimed. "I hadn't seen you in 7 years until the rehearsal dinner." "I know that. And you know that," Nicholas said soothingly. "But it makes for a better story than the truth, that I realized I was still in love with you the moment you walked back into my life." Despite the circumstances, Ava felt her heart flutter at his words. Over the past few days, they had been careful not to rush into declarations or promises, focusing instead on rebuilding trust and understanding. This was the first time since the wedding day that Nicholas had stated his feelings so plainly. "What does this mean for us?" she asked softly. Nicholas took her free hand in his. "It means that when we go back, things will be complicated. People will talk. Your bookstore might get unwanted attention. Our privacy will be invaded." He searched her face. "Are you prepared for that?" Ava thought about her quiet life, her small store, her peaceful routines. All of that would change if she chose a future with Nicholas. Was she ready for such a drastic shift? "I don't know," she admitted honestly. "Part of me wants to run back to my simple life and pretend none of this ever happened." "But then what?" Nicholas prompted when she didn't continue. Ava met his gaze. "Then I look at you, and I remember how I felt all those years ago, how I feel now, and I wonder if maybe some things are worth the complications." Nicholas's smile was gentle but cautious. "I would never ask you to change your life for me, Ava. Not again. Whatever happens between us, it has to be right for both of us." Before Ava could respond, they heard the sound of tires on gravel. Nicholas tensed, immediately protective. "Are you expecting someone?" Ava asked, alarm rising in her chest. "No," Nicholas replied, already moving toward the house. "Stay here." But Ava followed him, unwilling to be left behind. They reached the front of the lodge just as a sleek black car pulled up. To their mutual relief, it was Henry Booth who emerged, looking grave but not hostile. "Henry," Nicholas greeted him with surprise. "How did you find us?" Henry approached them with measured steps. "Marcus told me. Don't blame him. I convinced him it was urgent." He looked between Nicholas and Ava, his expression softening slightly. "And judging by the two of you, it seems I was right to come." "What's happened?" Nicholas asked, immediately concerned. Henry glanced at Ava. "Perhaps we should discuss this inside." Once they were settled in the living room, Henry got straight to the point. "The Reynolds family is out for blood, Nicholas. James has been calling in favors, trying to turn your business associates against you. And Vivian," he shook his head, "Vivian has been more strategic." "The interview," Nicholas nodded, having already seen it. "That's just the beginning," Henry warned. "She's painting herself as the victim of a long-running deception. According to her version, you and Ava reconnected months ago and have been carrying on behind her back." Ava's face flushed with anger. "That's a complete lie. I hadn't seen or spoken to Nicholas in years before the rehearsal dinner." Henry turned to her with sympathy. "I know that, But Vivian's story is more scandalous, more dramatic, and she has the society connections to make it stick. But why? Ava asked, bewildered. Why go to such lengths? Revenge, Nicholas said simply. I humiliated her publicly. Now she's returning the favor. Henry nodded grimly. There's more. She's claiming that you, Ava, orchestrated the whole thing, that you came to the rehearsal dinner with the express purpose of breaking up the wedding. Ava stood up, too agitated to remain seated. That's absurd. Nicholas invited me. I almost didn't even go. I know, Henry reassured her, but the story is gaining traction. Your little bookstore has become the center of a media storm. Reporters are camping outside. Customers can't get in. Your employee, Rachel, is it, has been turning them away, but it's affecting your business. Ava felt a wave of distress. My store, all those people who depend on it. She turned to Nicholas, a hint of accusation in her eyes. This is exactly what I was afraid would happen. Nicholas stood to join her, his expression pained. Ava, I'm so sorry. I never meant for any of this to touch you. Henry cleared his throat. There might be a way to mitigate the damage. He looked at Nicholas meaningfully. You need to give your side of the story, a single, clear statement that puts the timeline straight. Make it clear that you and Ava had no contact until the rehearsal dinner, that the decision to call off the wedding was yours alone, and that Ava had nothing to do with it. Nicholas nodded slowly. That could work. A press conference when we return to the city. No, Henry corrected. Not we, you. Alone. Nicholas frowned. What do you mean? Henry's gaze moved between them. If you two return to the city together, it will only fuel Vivian's narrative. You need to separate, at least publicly, until this dies down. Ava felt a chill at Henry's words. After these days of reconnection, the thought of being apart from Nicholas again was more painful than she had expected. He's right, she said quietly. I need to go back alone, deal with my store, my life. Nicholas started to protest, but Henry cut him off. It's the only way, Nicholas. You go back, make your statement, handle the business fallout. Let Ava return to her life without the spotlight. Give it time for the gossip to die down. A heavy silence fell over the room. Nicholas looked at Ava, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and determination. I'll have Marcus take you back today, he said finally. I'll follow tomorrow. And hold the press conference. Make it clear that there was no affair, that you were an innocent party in all this. Ava nodded, her heart heavy. Just when they had found each other again, they were being forced apart. I'll give you two some privacy, Henry said, rising from his seat. I'll be outside when you're ready, Ava. After Henry left, Nicholas moved to Ava, taking both her hands in his. This isn't how I wanted things to go. I know, she said softly, but Henry's right. We need to be practical. Nicholas's grip on her hands tightened slightly. This isn't the end, Ava. It's just a pause. Once the media loses interest, once the Reynolds family moves on to other targets, we can try again, if that's what you want. Ava looked up at him, seeing the vulnerability beneath his confident exterior. Is that what you want? More than anything, he replied without hesitation. These past few days with you have been the happiest I've had in years. I don't want to lose you again. Ava felt tears threatening to form, but held them back. Then we'll find our way back to each other. When the time is right, Nicholas leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. I promise you, Ava, whatever it takes, however long it takes, I'll wait for you. On the return to the city was as difficult as Ava had feared. Henry and Marcus had managed to get her back to her apartment without being spotted by reporters. But the bookstore was another matter. Just as Henry had warned, Turning Pages was surrounded by media, making it impossible for customers to enter. Rachel had been valiantly keeping things running, but the situation was untenable. Maybe we should close for a week or two, Rachel suggested when Ava finally made it to the store through the back entrance. Wait for this to blow over. Ava shook her head firmly. No, I won't let them win like that. This store is my life, and I'm not going to hide. With renewed determination, Ava faced the reporters head-on the next morning. Standing in front of her store, she made a brief statement. My name is Ava Carter. I own this bookstore. I had no romantic involvement with Nicholas Vaughan before or during his engagement to Vivian Reynolds. I was invited to the rehearsal dinner, I attended, and that was the extent of my involvement until Nicholas made his own decision regarding his wedding. Now, I would appreciate if you would allow my customers to enter my store in peace. Thank you. Simple, direct, and dignified, just like Ava herself. Some reporters tried to ask follow-up questions, but she simply turned and went back inside, where Rachel was waiting with a proud smile. That was perfect, her friend said, hugging her tightly. Now let's see if it works. To Ava's relief, many of the reporters did disperse after her statement. A few diehards remained, but customers were able to enter the store again, and slowly, a semblance of normalcy returned. Meanwhile, across town, Nicholas was holding his own press conference. Dressed in a conservative suit, looking every inch the serious businessman, he addressed the gathered media with authority. I want to set the record straight about the events surrounding my cancelled wedding, he began, his voice steady. The decision to call off the wedding was mine alone, made when I realized I could not in good conscience make vows I was uncertain I could keep. This decision had nothing to do with Ava Carter, who had no contact with me for 7 years before attending the rehearsal dinner at my invitation. He paused, making eye contact with several reporters to emphasize his next point. Any suggestion that Ms. Carter and I were involved in a relationship prior to my decision is categorically false. Ms. Carter is an innocent party who has been unfairly dragged into a private matter. I ask that you respect her privacy and allow her to continue her life and business without harassment. The questions afterward were predictably invasive, but Nicholas handled them with calm determination, neither confirming nor denying any current relationship with Ava, focused only on clearing her name from Vivian's accusations. As Nicholas had predicted, James Reynolds' attempts to damage his business interests ultimately failed. Nicholas's position was too strong, his companies too successful, for one disgruntled father-in-law who never was to truly harm them. The business world quickly moved on to other scandals and opportunities. Vivian herself retreated from the public eye after Nicholas's press conference. Sources close to her reported that she had accepted an invitation to spend several months at a friend's estate in Europe, a graceful exit that allowed her to save face while the gossip died down. Taristali 2 months passed. Ava's bookstore gradually returned to normal as the media found newer, more exciting stories to chase. Nicholas threw himself into his work, restructuring several of his companies with a new focus on sustainable development and community impact, changes that surprised the business world but earned him renewed respect among his peers. They didn't see each other during this time, though they spoke occasionally by phone. Brief, careful conversations that nevertheless left Ava smiling long after they ended. Nicholas respected her need for space, her desire to rebuild her normal life before complicating it again with his presence. Then, on a crisp fall morning, the bell above the door of Turning Pages jingled, and Ava looked up to see Nicholas standing there. He was dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, looking more like the young man she had first fallen in love with than the billionaire who had invited her to his wedding months ago. "Nicholas," she said, her heart skipping a beat at the sight of him. "I wasn't expecting you." He smiled, a touch of nervousness visible beneath his usual confidence. "I know. I should have called first. But I wanted to see you, to see how you're doing." Ava came out from behind the counter. The store was empty except for an elderly couple browsing the mystery section. "I'm doing well," she told him honestly. "Things have finally calmed down." Nicholas nodded, clearly relieved. "I'm glad. I've been worried about you." "And you?" Ava asked. "I've been reading about your company's new direction. It's impressive." "It's what I should have been doing all along," Nicholas admitted. "Building something meaningful, not just profitable." He hesitated, then added, "You inspired that change, you know. Remembering why I started in the first place, what I really wanted to achieve." Ava felt warmth spread through her at his words. "I'm glad I could help, even indirectly." They stood in awkward silence for a moment, both aware of the words unsaid between them. Finally, Nicholas spoke again. "I've missed you, Ava. More than I thought possible." The simple honesty of his statement touched her deeply. "I've missed you too," she admitted. Nicholas took a step closer. The media has moved on. The Reynolds family has retreated. Even my business associates have stopped gossiping about the wedding that wasn't. His eyes met hers, hopeful but cautious. I was wondering if you might have dinner with me tonight. A real date, a new beginning. Ava felt her heart racing. The past months had given her time to think, to process everything that had happened between them, both years ago and more recently. She had come to realize something important. Despite the pain of their past, despite the complications he brought to her life, Nicholas Vaughan was the one man she had never been able to forget, the one man whose absence had left a void in her heart that no amount of books or quiet contentment could fill. "Yes," she said simply, "I'd like that." The smile that lit up Nicholas's face was worth all the uncertainty of the past months. He reached for her hand, his touch sending the same thrill through her that it always had. "I thought maybe we could try that little Italian restaurant where we had our first date," he suggested. "For old time's sake." Ava laughed in surprise. "You remember that place? It's been 15 years. "I remember everything about our beginning, Ava," Nicholas said softly, "and I want to get it right this time." 6 months later, on a warm spring evening, Turning Pages closed early for a private event. The small bookstore had been transformed, with soft lighting and flowers, and a small group of close friends gathered among the bookshelves. Ava stood in the back room, looking at herself in the full-length mirror Rachel had brought for the occasion. Her dress was simple but elegant, an ivory sheath that fell to just below her knees, with a matching jacket adorned with delicate beadwork. Her hair was styled in soft waves, and she wore the pearl earrings that had belonged to her mother. "You look beautiful," Rachel said, adjusting the small bouquet of wildflowers in Ava's hands. "Are you ready?" Ava nodded, her heart full of certainty. More than ready. In the main area of the store, Nicholas waited near the impromptu altar they had created from a vintage lectern. He wore a charcoal grey suit with no tie, looking both handsome and relaxed. Henry stood beside him as his best man, while their small group of guests, no more than 20 people, watched with happy anticipation. When Ava appeared, walking down the narrow aisle between bookshelves, Nicholas's face lit up with a joy so pure it brought tears to the eyes of even their most cynical friends. This was no society wedding with hundreds of acquaintances and business associates. This was an intimate celebration of love rediscovered, of second chances seized, of a future built on wiser foundations than the past. The ceremony was brief but heartfelt. They exchanged simple vows they had written themselves, promises made. With the wisdom of experience and the hope of new beginnings, when they sealed their union with a kiss, the small gathering erupted in warm applause. Later, as they shared a quiet moment together, while their friends mingled and celebrated, Nicholas took Ava's hand, now adorned with a simple gold band. "Chakdu, you remember what you said to me that night at the rehearsal dinner?" he asked. "When I asked why you came?" Ava nodded. "I said I needed to see for myself that our story was really over." Nicholas smiled, bringing her hand to his lips. "And now?" Ava looked around at the bookstore that had been her sanctuary, at the friends who had supported her, and finally at the man who had found his way back to her heart. "Now I know our story was just beginning," she said softly. "It just took a detour along the way." Outside the bookstore windows, life in the city continued its busy pace. But inside, surrounded by books and loved ones, Nicholas and Ava had found their own happily ever after. Not in wealth or status, but in the simple truth that sometimes the heart knows what it wants, even when the mind takes the long way around to discovering it. And in the end, that was the only invitation that mattered, the invitation to love again, to trust again, to build something real and lasting together. It was an invitation they had both finally accepted with open hearts.